Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Conservation Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency meeting for Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024 to order. We have all two alternates. Are you an alternate? You're an alternate. We have two alternates, or if we can fill the vacancies that we have tonight. Shows up. So Sue and Allison. And tonight we're going to have a presentation on.
We want to specify who you're sitting for. I would start with Joe.
And Charles.
And then Charles, sure.
So tonight, last time we had a discussion about invasive plants. This week we're going to have a discussion on dark skies. And I know this is something that's in the POCD to develop dark sky regulations for the town. So this is going towards that, educating people what they can do in their own home to darken the night sky and why. Most importantly, why. So let's start with those.
I'm sure. Sure. I'm not sure how I can get it
You can
back.
go to slideshow. Go to slideshow and start from the correct slide. Okay, we can see that. Oh, sorry. All right. So thank you very much. All right. So when we look outside, generally we see this, but we used to be able to see much more in the evening sky. But you know, and for billions of years, that's what we have seen. And the Earth relied on this, the rhythm of the night and day. We were all built for this, and it's built into our circadian rhythms. It's built into migration cycles, flowering, hunting, hibernation. A whole host of biological processes are tied into this darkness and light cycle. And we have animals that are working on the day shift, like the hawks, and then the owls and the night shift. All right, and we also have insects that do the same. And we tend to concentrate on the bees and butterflies. We tend to concentrate on the things we see during the day. I do teach at the Nature Center, and I always am impressed that the children know the word nocturnal. And then when you ask them what we are, because we're awake during the day and sleep at night, and I ask them what's that called, and the best answer I got was normal. So that's what we think, because we don't see the stuff at night, so it's not really that important. But nighttime is a habitat for a lot of the different animals that we share this world with. And you know, yeah, they're lit up a little bit by the moon, but a lot of times the moon's just not there. They need dark. But instead of seeing stars, we see sky glow. And sky glow is what's coming from our lights, from our homes, from our cities, and it's increasing every year. The idea is it's increasing by 2% per year, but that's only the measurable light. Now that we have the LED lights, they're a little harder for the satellites to pick up, so the sky glow is increasing even higher than 2% per year. And interestingly, a lot of world population and a lot of the residents in the United States and Europe do not see those stars. They live under light polluted skies. So where's that light coming from? Well, from our homes, from all these outside lights. A lot of it's getting reflected back from the clouds. And you know, the closer you are to a big city, certainly the harder it is to see the stars. You have to get way out of the country now to see the skies. And I love this. In 1994, when power was knocked out of Los Angeles, people started phoning in 9/11 to say, what is that thing up in they were very concerned about that big silvery cloud up in the night sky, which of course is the Milky Way. So we're not doing too badly. London's over there. We're not New York City is over here, but the worst place versus This is, some of the Singapore and Hong Kong, but here in our, this is the map of the predicted map for the light pollution. You can see the 1950s, you can see that megalopolis corridor, but it's getting more and more each decade. And 2025, that's next year, and it's half the country is well lit up. And you can see it if you haven't flown into Chicago, or, you see those lights. It used to be that you'd see all just these yellow lights. Now you're starting to see these blue lights, which are the LED lights. So a lot of our lighting comes from roadways. 34% comes from parking lots. And you could do needlework under those lights. They're incredibly well lit. But there's also lighting that we put on our houses. If you'd like to see what they look like at night, show everybody but they can't see it during the day. What the house looks like. And of course, lighting up the garden. We've got so many more wonderful products that we can put out in the garden to light up the night, and so we can see, because we like the light. So we like to share it. Put up those party lights. Almost 60% comes from stadiums and sports fields, and even lights coming from spilling from our interior. I know we had an application here where I was concerned about, I was concerned about the light spilling from the hallway of application, and they're not convinced that light could spill, but it does. So the artificial light has really incredibly important and negative effects on many of the creatures, a whole host of creatures, amphibians, birds, mammals, insects, plants. It definitely affects the night vision of mammals. When you shine a flashlight out at night, you might see the little eyes shining back at you. That's because they do have this mirror surface at the back of their eye, which reflects the light it bounces around their eyes, so they can capture all the light so they can see. We don't have this because we're not, and you can see different colors from different animals. But that's, you can tell that their eyes are adapted for the night. And when they see the lights of a car affecting, we see that deer in the headlights. Well, it's because they can't see. They're absolutely flooded, just as their eyes are flooded, just as when ours are flooded by bright lights when we turn on the light after being in a dark room. And it also may be likely suspected to be a driver of insect decline. A lot of our insects operate at night. They're the night shift we talked about earlier, and they are affected by these insect declines. So how does it affect insects? Well, collisions, they bump into things, exhaustion, incineration, dehydration, a whole host of different very serious disruptions to their behavior and the mating, the foraging, reproduction. And it's been shown to reduce the overall rate of pollination. We've been, concentrating for the most part on bees and butterflies pollinating, but more research has found out that the moths, the nighttime insects, do a lot of the pollination as well. So even things like fireflies and moths are very important, even in crop pollination. And in the areas where there was artificial lighting, some of the visits to the plants by these nighttime insects were found to be reduced by 62%. And why is that important? Well, we concentrate on the butterflies, but we only have 121 species of butterflies, but we have over 2,400 species of moths. So they're out there for a reason. They're doing a lot of the work for pollinating, but also feeding a lot of different animals. So they're very important. So here's one that's not pollinating or feeding, but isn't it beautiful? It's a polyphemus moth. Their populations will decline. But the wonderful thing about all these moths is that they produce caterpillars. And caterpillars are an incredibly important way of changing a leaf into protein, a nice little protein package for these guys. And the caterpillars are the baby bird food, not worms. They feed the birds. And so here's a mother chickadee coming with a nice little package of protein and lipids and all sorts of nutrients. She's going to find which mouth to put. She has to decide which of those hungry mouths she's going to put it in. She's going to put it in the biggest one. He's going to close his mouth, go to sleep. Dad will come back 2 minutes later. He'll put it in the next biggest one. He'll go to sleep, and they'll work their way down the line until they finally get to this little guy over here. That is, if he doesn't wake up first, because if he wakes up first, he will get the caterpillar and the little one won't. So it takes an incredible amount to raise all of those chickadees. It takes an incredible amount of caterpillars. They're in the nest for about 3 weeks, and they are, from the time the sun comes up in the morning till the sun comes down, it goes down at night. Mom and dad are feeding them every few minutes, and it takes between 6,000 to 10,000 caterpillars to raise one clutch of songbirds. So those moths are incredibly important to the survival of our birds. And what the scientists are finding, this is a UK study, that lighting reduced the number of caterpillars by 1/2 to 1/3. So especially at sites which have the new LED lights, they are the brighter, whiter lights. The color of the light makes a big difference. They had steeper reductions in numbers compared with the old sodium lamps, the yellow lamps. They didn't find the decline because the insects are not as sensitive to the yellow wavelengths. If you want to see how many moth species we have in our area, just leave your porch light on and you will see those moths. You'll be able to see the wide variety of moths that we do have. There's been some interesting studies lately. You know, they say the artificial light disorients the moths, keeps them from finding a partner. Predators can find them more easily under the lights. And so when they're doing this, they're not out pollinating. And there's been a recent study as to why these moths are going around and round and round the lights. It's not because of the heat, it's not because of the light, it's because they're trying to put sort of their back to the moon. And the light bulb is seen as the moon, and they're trying to figure out how this works. So it is even affecting the diurnal or the daytime butterflies. They find that when migrating monarchs are exposed to light at night, when they should be resting, they don't migrate as well. They're disoriented the next day, just as if we were sleeping in a room with lights on, we wouldn't do that well either next day. So anywhere there are lights, there are concentration of bats and insects. Certainly our bats need all the help they can get, but this is particularly good for them either, especially the bluish white or white lights. They really attract the insects. And it's not good for the bats either, since they're a nocturnal animal. It could disorient them and cause retinal damage to the bats, especially ultraviolet light. And if you have a light on near a bat roost, they can abandon it, or they will not leave their roost to go out at night because they're still waiting for darkness to come. So it upsets their rhythm. And I don't know if any of you have been enjoying the firefly season we've been having. It's been a lovely, well, my backyard's a lovely one. Mid-June through mid-July is our season, but the lighting, even a brief glimpse of the lighting, will disrupt firefly mating and signaling. So just even a little bit of light will disturb them. And we need those fireflies because the fireflies, we don't really know what they eat. They may eat nectar or pollen or other fireflies, or we don't really know. But the firefly larvae are very helpful in our gardens because they eat slugs and snails and worms. Let's just hope they eat the Asian jumping birds. But it also affects the birds. So when we have the lights on at night, especially in the big cities, and a lot of light pollution at night, it really disrupts bird migration as they migrate from Central and South America. And most of the migration happens in a very short period of time, especially in the spring. And that 3 weeks period is a critical period for us to keep our lights off. So birds that migrate or hunt at night navigate by moonlight and starlight. That can help them if they have the lights of the cities on, if they get off course, or they become disoriented. They fly around the buildings as they're trying to look for where they are. They collide with the buildings, or they fly around until they die. And every morning, the building maintenance crew has the disturbing task of picking up all the birds that just didn't make it through their migration because of the nightlight. And this was something that they found at McCormick Place in Chicago. McCormick Place, if you've ever seen it, is a huge structure right at the Lakeshore Drive. It's all glass, it lights up beautifully at night. And on the nights when the lights were out, when there wasn't a big convention or an event going on in the park, the staff found that there were fewer dead birds on the ground the next morning. So the obvious thing is if you just turn off the lights during the spring and fall migration, you're going to reduce a lot of the bird deaths at that period of time. And it can read up to 11 times during the spring and 6 times during the autumn season. It's lower in the autumn because the autumn migration season is a much longer period of time. And so this is what they found. They are reducing their lights, and they're finding fewer dead birds at the base. Other things that might be that certainly are affecting us. I mean, we need the birds to keep the insect population under control, but it has been found, some research has shown that birds that are exposed to artificial light are more stressed, so they incubate the West Nile virus for twice as long, maybe increasing the occurrence of West Nile in our cities. So what can we do? Well, Connecticut the Connecticut legislature has adopted this lights out Connecticut. They suggest turning off unnecessary outdoor lights from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., giving the nighttime creatures, the nocturnal creatures, at least some part of their habitat. And especially during bird migration, which is really the April 1st to May 31st, and the fall migration is from August 15th to November 15th. The interesting thing, the Connecticut Dark Sky, International Dark Sky Association, the Connecticut chapter, lobbied the legislature, and they said, what if we just turn off the lights for the state buildings? Keep the light on at the state capitol, because they want to light that one up. But all the rest of the lights, they were suggesting turn them off at these periods. Well, you can save some money. And very nicely, the state legislature said, well, heck, why don't we just do it the rest of the year? So that's what they do, saving money even for a longer period of time. So this is something, we don't need legislation to do it in our own home to save money, but we can do it. I mean, because, having the lights on at night not only contributes to a lot of different impacts for our animals, but it also, means a lot of electricity has to be used, and there are a lot of impacts from using that electricity. So you can save a lot of money by just turning these lights off. In some communities down in the south, on the south coast, down in Florida, they are noticing that the sea turtle hatchlings, instead of going towards the moon, they're heading towards the lights of all the hotels and apartment buildings along the shore. So they're having a lights out from May 1st to October 31st, when the sea turtles are more likely to be hatching and migrating back out into the water. So they're doing it for even longer. They're doing it for a nice long period of time. And the scientists have also found that aside from turtles, the artificial light also impacts male frogs in the lit area. They don't call as frequently as the frogs in the unlit area. And of course, the calling is to attract a mate. So if they're not successful in finding a mate, they're not going to reproduce. And salamanders forage in the forest floor at night, and they rather do it in darker areas than in lighter areas, because that's where they won't be found. If they're exposed to light, they're more likely to have predation. Wood frog tadpoles were larger, less active, and more sensitive to road salt pollution and had more parasites if they were exposed to light. So one stress can amplify the other stressors that are already in the environment. Now, sometimes it depends on the species, which, some species are affected more than others, but generally it's not how they're designed to function. So there are individual effects. Some were small, the lights affected the individual species, and sometimes on a community, and it might or might not have the effects. But generally speaking, these things are designed to avoid the light, except for the moonlight. And it even affects plants. I don't know if you keep an eye out, you'll see in the fall, sometimes the tree leaves don't fall off as quickly in an area right next to a light. And here you can see under this porch light, which is kept on, in the spring, these flowers are starting to bloom before all the rest of the flowers there, because they get exposure to their timing is offset, is messed up by the extra light that they're getting. So the more that this is studied, the more scientists are finding that these have individual effects on a genetic and a hormonal level. It affects individuals in that population, in the populations of whole communities, and affects ecosystem landscapes. So if you're not having as many caterpillars, for instance, you're not having as many birds survive, then that's going to have ramifications for a lot of other things down the line. So what we do know, looking at all that data, there's really no such thing as wildlife friendly lighting. They just don't need it. They're not designed for it. So the best part about this light pollution problem is it's completely reversible. We don't have to have a lot of these lights on. The suggestions are, from the International Dark Sky, there's only light where, if it's needed, when it's needed, where it's needed. Use warm lights, we talked a little bit about that, but or amber lights, and keep them low and shielded and directed to where you need them. So there are a lot of things we can do. You can look at how, your outside lighting. If it's shielded like this, not shining up, but it's shining down targeted, that's the very best way for orientation rather than this, which is everywhere. And I know a lot of the town lights are shielded and directed downward. So that's, think about the house lights that we select. So here's we have, this is the light that's shining right on the sidewalk. You really don't need to see everything up in there, but you can see these animals. It's demonstrating the animals up here are very happy with the little bit of light that's shown down here, as opposed to this, where it's shining everywhere. The cooler color, the white lights are more harmful than the yellow lights. The nice thing is we all look better in yellow light than we do in the white light. And our circadian rhythms are particularly affected by the blue lights. So we all know that if we spend time on our electronic, iPads and all the rest at night, the insomnia is more likely to occur because it affects our ability to sleep. So the white lights emit light across the entire visible spectrum. So, and that's where the real problem comes in. So even though, we switch to these lights because they use less energy than the other lights, they're having some unintended consequences. Yes, we're using less electricity, but there are a lot of impacts from using the new LED lights as opposed to sodium lights. But you can get warm LED lights too, so it's not a either or. And even the American Medical Association recommends against blue white light because of the harmful effects on people. It affects their sleep cycles, but they've also found some risks for obesity, depression, diabetes, breast cancer, a whole lot of things. So it's not good for our health. Buying a light bulb these days is a challenge. There's so many different light bulbs to buy. It's I can spend hours just staring at the shelf of light bulbs. But what you want to do is look for this is the thing we never had to look for before, but Kelvin ratings. That tells you how hot or cool the light is. And what you want to do is get down into the lower numbers rather than the higher numbers. These are lights where if you have a jewelry store, you want that light because everything will look sparkly and lovely. But this is the light you want for nighttime. So those are the ones. And nicely, they're even just regular light bulbs. You can get the bulb light bulbs, replace your outdoor. This is an easy thing to do. Replace your outdoor light bulbs. We can see at night with these lights. The 2000 Kelvin is even preferable to the 2700. And the nice thing is, the next morning, if you have that bulb on, you'll have fewer insects at your front door all around your light because they're not attracted to the yellow lights. Some cities are dimming their lights at night. In Tucson, they'll have it on when it's a time when everyone's busy. They need they think more people are out. But when the later night hours come, they cut it off. They dim the lights down to 30%, and you can still see. I certainly know when we drive around Simsbury, we can all see with our headlights as we drive around. My sister lives in Southern England, and there they turn off all their street lights at 10 o'clock, figuring that everyone has a car with headlights on it when you get to see. And we've often thought that more light makes it safer, but the studies show that property crime occurs mostly where it's light because we are diurnal creatures. We like light, and interestingly, vandalism and graffiti are higher in areas that are well lit because you can't do graffiti in the dark. And it's hard to see what you're doing. Brighter lights doesn't mean it's safer. It's better to direct the light where you need it. So here's some bright lights. They're harsh white, but here it is directed, and you can see just as well. The older we get, the less our pupils are able to react to the new bright headlights. We've all had that thing where the cars with the high the large cars with the high beams. as that coming forward. It's very difficult for the eyes to adjust after that car is passed to see what's on the road ahead. So it's a safety issue. It'd be better to have those lights being a yellow light, especially for the older drivers out there. And if the light is too bright, and you see this picture, there is someone standing there, but you can't see them because your eye has been blinded by this bright light here. So putting the hand over there and keeping it, now you can see the person. So having too bright a light, if you're outside and you're thinking you're going to see someone crawling around, you're actually not going to be able to see them. Better yet to have a timer. Put the lights on when you need them. When you don't need them, they can go off. Or, and as I said, you can turn the street's lights off at certain times of the day. But better yet, we have motion sensors. And this is something that when the lights are on all the time, you're not going to notice it. But if the lights suddenly switched on, you are definitely going to notice something's happening. And that is actually safer. If you're worried about security, it's also an alert, something that alerts the any intruder that they are being now monitored, whereas before they were in the dark or in the light and nobody was seeing them. There's some very low tech solutions. Just close your curtains during the spring and fall migration periods or during firefly season because of the light that's spilling out from our house. This is very, very easy to do. And think about if you are gardening, think about gardening for the nocturnal pollinators. Any of the white flowers or things that say evening, like this evening primrose, they are designed to be pollinated by the nighttime, the night shift. So there are an awful lot of white flowers out there, and they're white for a reason. I love the fact that some places now sell firefly connection. We don't really know. They don't really well. They might pollinate. We don't really know, but what we do know is where we have native plants, we will have more fireflies. And where we have native plants, we have more insects in general. All of the insects are affected by the light. So you can see the number of insects that are supported by the native plants as opposed to non-native. These are things we plant habitually in our yard. They really don't do much of anything. The butterfly bush will feed the swallowtails, but they'll nectar on practically any flower. But these things will feed the insects, meaning the caterpillars are the things that eat the leaves. And one of the best ones is oak trees. They support hundreds of butterfly and moth species. And of course, if we're using sprays on our garden, we're not just killing off the ticks and the things and the mosquitoes. This is not the best way to kill mosquitoes, by the way, but this is, we're going to be killing off all the insects. I've worked at the Nature Center long enough to know a lot of people just don't like insects, but they're very important. The world can exist without humans, but it can't exist without insects. So there are a lot of things we can do. We can rewild some of our yard. Fireflies need tall grass to hide in during the day and to signal their mates at night. And it's very effective. Things that we can do is let leaf litter and logs accumulate. Fireflies need moisture and leaf litter, rotting logs. They don't do well with mulch. Mulch is sort of a desert for a lot of insects and things. So, and they need darkness. I mean, this is one of the critical things they do. We have a lot of forests in Simsbury, a lot of the wild areas, but they need some tall grass. They need some areas to put on their show. And here's the wonderful thing about it. Light pollution is a problem that can disappear just by turning off the light. They're just and closing the curtains. There are very few ecological problems that could be fixed this easily. It just requires thinking about those nighttime creatures because most of us don't because we're not aware of them. They're out at night. So the real take-home message is light pollution has no beneficial effects except for us to see in the dark. And we should come up with lighting schemes that minimize our environmental impacts. It's not no lights, it's just smart lighting and not wasteful lighting. So that's why we're asking our town zoning commission to implement dark sky regulations as they are tasked in the POCD to do so. And I think they're working on that at the moment, George. And this is something that the Conservation Commission has encouraged the zoning group to do because we want to see those stars again. That's what we want to see. All right. So that's my presentation for tonight. And hopefully you'll all go home and close your curtains, turn off the lights. Enjoy the stars. That's it. And hopefully someday we'd see the Milky Way. That would be the best of all. And after all, it's part of our cultural heritage. That's it. All right.
I mean, the big giant, so, wow.
What did Amy? Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
I have noticed, we have a gooseneck over the gas garage.
Yeah.
And we put a light bulb, incandescent bulb.
Yeah.
Still would lights,
Yes.
but it would burn out because it's outside.
Yeah.
I put an LED, like a 2700.
Yeah.
And there are a lot fewer. I mean, it was like night and day.
Yeah.
No pun
Literally.
intended.
Yeah.
But there are a few, but
But no,
nothing like the incandescent,
yeah.
because they're cooler.
Well, it's
From-
not the heat, it's the light, the amount of light, and and the color. So you've got a 2700 that's, you can even go lower. It's funny, I was down at a lighting store and I was asking for a really low Kelvin, and I would never be able to see with that. But As I get older, I like the yellow lights thing, much better. And it's darker to be good too.
Well, it's funny, it's like a Home Depot.
Yeah,
It's hard to find the 2700 because they're all sold out.
I-
That's what people want.
Well,
They don't
yeah,
want the
they don't want,
5,000.
so we're getting that message across, but yeah, it's just something for us to think about. It's an easy fix. It's something that, the town, I know there are some parts of the town. I live in Old Farms Road and part of the something good enough that the Simsbury Farm sign is one that points up instead of down on the sign. As you're coming along Old Farms Road, it's like, wow, it's blinding. It's bright. The farm's there, but whoa. So there's things that, the town can be working on. But it's good. Get it moving in the right direction. A lot of our lights are shielded, but hopefully we'll move even further into this. We're already kind of dark because, there aren't that many street lights. The things we could do to improve it. Right.
I never like streetlights on 91, especially if it's raining. You can't see anything because
The glare.
the glare.
Yeah.
It's like, well, again, you're right. We have headlights. Why do we need it lit up like daytime?
Yeah.
That's why God put headlights on cars.
Yeah. And there are all sorts, I listened to a presentation at the Connecticut Land Conservation Council. Leo Smith, who was the chair of the Connecticut branch. And he was talking about the stretch from Hartford to Springfield that's all lit up.
Yeah.
Because they got a government grant to do some. That was amazing, but I don't know that there was a study to show that it's needed there, but if you go south of Hartford,
It peters out.
you don't have it, so,
I've been noticing there's a lot more purple lights on the highways. What's the purpose of the?
that's because the light is not functioning. It's
expiring.
It's expiring.
Oh, the bulb is burning.
Yeah, yeah,
Or the LEDs are.
yeah, it's not a new trend,
It's not a new bulb.
it's just, it needs to be replaced.
How much money we spend
go
on
highway.
streetlights?
They actually
Like per
got
section, like per.
a huge order apparently that were like effective, and after a short amount of time, I'll start turning purple.
So, it's not a new trend, that would still be in the blue range, so that would be good. So,
I was all excited. I thought maybe it was a new safety light that was better for wildlife, and I Googled it. It was like DOT announces. And I'm like,
That's too bad.
Because I noticed in Florida, they have them everywhere. And then here you see sections of the highway where it's turned purple, like going 84, Farmington area. There's a couple other sections where you see it, but it's just like short sections of it.
So there's a lot of science that goes into lighting the highways and it's good science, but sometimes it's just. Over.
I wonder how much money it costs to like a mile of highway.
Well, just filtered through a particular set of values, right?
Yes,
Yeah, the engineers just see it differently. right?
yes,
They-
yeah,
They're looking at
so,
whatever it looks.
yeah, so there needs to be a broader discussion. Yeah. All right, thank you. Perfect. So moving on in our meeting, approval of minutes for June 18th. Anyone have any corrections or changes? Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? New applications for receipt, termination,
We don't have any this evening.
lovely,
No.
no public hearings, all commission business.
So Brittany did put a couple of slides together for a couple of agent approvals she did. I'll just bring those up for you. Finally. Share this necessarily. Yeah, so there are two agent approvals, and I guess for our new alternates. No, it's going on. Maybe it will share. There we go. So obviously there's certain thresholds of applications. Pardon me, can you make that move?
Oh, sorry. You want me to go to the next
Yeah,
page?
go back to the beginning.
Not doing it.
Oh.
But- oh.
It's not letting me in, just hang on. Okay. There we go. Yeah, so there's certain levels of applications. Commission obviously gets to review, chooses to review and can review under our regulations. Activities within a wetland or a water course, or activities, larger activities within the upland review area. But for smaller projects further away from wetlands and water courses, the commission defers to our wetlands agent, who's Brittany. It's a staff member. So we review things like these two: decks, replacement of decks or decks within, really, it's usually going to be over 50 feet. Over 50 feet from your low wetland area. So this is an item that's been approved by the designated agent, 240 square foot deck section, 68 feet from the water course. So we work closely with, usually we're not working with developers, particularly on these designated agent approvals. We're working with citizens, yourselves, when if you're doing a deck. So we work with them just to be careful about silt fencing, and spoils areas and those kinds of things. So we usually make those part of our letters of approval. So to Oakhurst got an approval, and then 286 Firetown for a similar application, a deck. I think the deck is 200 and whatever it is, 30 by 16, 80 foot from wetland soils. And yes, the point of bringing them to you, I think our regulations require us to show them to you in the event that you might disagree with staff, like, whoa, that's way too big for staff to be approving. But I think we typically know what our boundaries are. I don't think we've had any particular disputes.
And this also saved us a lot of time on a lot of our meetings.
It does.
We would have a lot of applications just for 4 post holes.
4 post holes and they're 10 by 10 deck sections, so we're not. But like I said, if there's ever a question or we think it's borderline, we're gonna make an applicant come to the full commission.
And one of the things I'd like to see as we go forward is, I don't know that we have this material at the moment, but give the homeowners, this is anytime we have an application, of course, it's an educational opportunity. So anything about invasive plants and native plants, we can give them,
Yeah, I mean, sure, yes, yes. Yeah, sure. So that's all that we have from staff tonight.
All right, so,
And I would just add one more thing as a matter of personal preference with the two new alternates you'll hear from Brittany in the next couple of weeks to bring you in either together or individually, and just do a little one-on-one about roles, responsibilities, purpose, intent, and that kind of.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And training program.
And then as part of that, we'll talk about the full training program.
All right, does anyone have anything else they want to bring up? All right, well, thank you for listening tonight, and do we have a motion to adjourn?
So we'll
All right, second, all in favor? Excellent. Thank you. guys.